You know it's bad when Herm Edwards looks into a camera, sighs like a disappointed uncle, and says 6 words that hit harder than any pass rush. Get out of Cleveland right now. That wasn't a hot take. That wasn't clickbait. That was a full-blown SOS. And he was talking about Shedeur Sanders. The same Shedeur Sanders who lit up the NCAA, who walked into training camp more polished than half the starters in the AFC, and who's currently rotting on the Browns bench behind a quarterback.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
Who costs more than a yacht and produces less than a Honda Civic with engine trouble. Let's get one thing straight. This isn't about Shedeur underperforming. It's not about immaturity or learning curves. No, what we're watching here is something far more brutal. A generational talent being buried alive under layers of ego, contract politics, and one of the most dysfunctional cultures in football. And Herm Edwards, a man who has seen careers vaporized by bad franchises, is sounding the alarm before it's too late. Let's not sugarcoat this. Cleveland has a type, and that type is promising quarterback, slowly driven insane by chaos. Johnny Manziel, Baker Mayfield, Deshaun Kaiser, the list goes on. Talented players get drafted, hyped, misused, then tossed out with yesterday's depth chart. Shedeur, right now, is next in line. And what makes it worse? He's ready. We're not talking about some raw project with potential. This is a QB who sees the field like a 10-year vet, who's got the footwork, the mechanics, the leadership, and the presence. He's precise. He's poised. He's got that unteachable calm in the pocket, the kind of trait you either have or you don't. And he's got it in spades. But what does Cleveland do? They sit him. Week after week. Rep after rep. They put him behind Deshaun Watson, a man whose contract is so untouchable, it might as well be written in ancient stone. Watson hasn't looked elite since his Houston days, but the Browns are chained to that $230 million guaranteed deal, like it's a family heirloom. So no matter how good Shedeur looks, no matter how badly the offense sputters, it doesn't matter. Because in Cleveland, money talks louder than talent. And Herm Edwards knows what that does to a young player. He's watched it happen for decades. Promising talent stashed on the sidelines, while ownership tries to justify past mistakes. Meanwhile, the locker room rots from the inside out. Players lose faith. Fans get restless. And eventually, the young guy either demands a trade or gets labeled as entitled for wanting to play football. Sound familiar? Edwards didn't just call it out. He named it. He said point blank that if Shedeur doesn't get out soon, Cleveland will do what it's always done. Chew him up, spit him out, and pretend like he was the problem all along. And you know what? He's not wrong. Just look at the signs. The Browns are openly divided. Ownership wants Shedeur to play. Fans are chanting his name. Half the locker room believes in him. And yet, the coaching staff clings to the script. They talk about development, waiting his turn, learning behind a veteran. But development doesn't mean suppression. It doesn't mean leaving your most exciting player to rot while the offense drowns in 3-and-outs. Herm's message wasn't subtle. It was a life raft. Leave before they break you. Before the media turns. Before the whispers start about your attitude or your brand or your family name. Before you become the next what if. Because Shedeur isn't just fighting for a starting job. He's fighting for his trajectory. And in Cleveland, that trajectory points straight into the ground. There are teams, smart teams, well-run teams, that would kill to develop a player like this. Where mentorship is real. Where contracts don't override common sense. Where the quarterback room isn't a political war zone. Herm didn't say it to be harsh. He said it because he cares. Because he's been around long enough to know how this story ends. And if Shedeur doesn't take control of the narrative soon, he's going to find himself trapped in a franchise that builds tombstones for talent. So yeah, it's not comfortable to say, but Herm Edwards said it best. Get out, Shedeur. Get out now. Herm Edwards said the quiet part out loud. Get out, Shedeur. The entire football world started paying a lot more attention. Suddenly, this wasn't just about Shedeur Sanders waiting his turn. It wasn't about the Browns developing him slowly. It was about something way bigger. Was Cleveland about to ruin another quarterback before he even got started? The answer? Let's just say the warning signs are glowing neon. Let's go back a bit. Shedeur Sanders didn't just walk into the NFL with a famous last name. He walked in with expectations, with pedigree, with a skill set so polished it made half the league's QB rooms look like a high school film session. This isn't your typical rookie quarterback we're talking about. He reads defenses like a veteran. He's accurate under pressure. He's calm, calculated, cold-blooded. And, on top of that, he has the type of charisma and maturity most teams would kill for. And yet, the Browns put him in a glass box labeled, "Do not touch until Deshaun's contract expires." And that's the real problem. This isn't about performance. This is about politics. And Shedeur Sanders? He's caught in the middle of a billion-dollar chess match where he's not the king. He's just a pawn being moved by a front office terrified of admitting they made a mistake. Deshaun Watson's contract might be the most unmovable object in professional football. 5 years. $230 million. Fully guaranteed. Translation? Cleveland can't bench him without admitting total failure. And if there's one thing NFL front offices hate more than losing, it's looking wrong in public. So now Shedeur's career is being handcuffed, not by talent, not by readiness, but by PR strategy. Let that sink in. You have a once-in-a-decade rookie QB being stashed behind a declining starter because the Browns are too stubborn to face the music. And Herm Edwards? He saw right through the smokescreen. You don't waste a guy like that. You don't let politics get in the way of football. Preach, coach. But here's the nightmare scenario no one in Cleveland wants to admit. What happens if Shedeur stays? What happens if, week after week, he watches Watson trot out to a lukewarm offense, eats up garbage time snaps, and gets fed the be patient speech in every film session? What happens if the media turns on him? If the fans start blaming him for the team's failures just because he's not saving them fast enough? What happens when that first anonymous source whispers to a reporter, "We're not sure Shedeur's ready. Maybe he's not who we thought"? Yeah, that's how it starts. That's how it always starts in Cleveland. Look at the history. Brady Quinn, Brandon Weeden, Deshaun Kaiser, Johnny Manziel, Baker Mayfield. All promising, all hyped, all broken by the same machine. And Shedeur? He's next in line unless he does something radical. And let's be clear, leaving would be radical. Quarterbacks don't demand trades this early. Not unless things are really bad. But that's exactly what Herm Edwards is trying to say. This isn't just a bad fit. This is a career trap. You don't survive long in the NFL if your best years are spent warming the bench behind a quarterback your team can't afford to bench. That's how legacies die before they ever begin. And here's the part the Browns still don't understand. Shedeur Sanders is not normal. He's not some developmental QB who needs 3 years in the lab. He's not trying to just compete for a backup spot. He's not happy being the mascot for some long-term rebuild. He's here to play. Now. And when Herm Edwards said get out, it wasn't just for drama. It was strategy. Because if Shedeur has the awareness and the guts to cut ties now, to say, this isn't where I can become who I'm meant to be, he could change his entire future. He could land in a system that actually invests in him. He could get reps, experience, leadership opportunities. He could avoid becoming another name on the Browns' quarterback tombstone. But if he stays, if he waits, he risks becoming what the system turns everyone into. A ghost. A could-ve been. A should-ve been. A remember when that kid had next story. And the worst part? It won't be his fault. It'll be the fault of an organization that still thinks money means more than momentum. That still clings to old headlines instead of recognizing the new face of its franchise is already in the building, but wearing a practice jersey. You want to know how broken it is? Shedeur's name trends every time the offense fails. Not because people are rooting for Watson to fail, but because they know, deep down, the wrong quarterback is playing. That kind of energy? That kind of buzz? You can't suppress it forever. Eventually, the Browns will either be forced to play Shedeur, or they'll be begging him not to leave. But by then, it might be too late. Because if there's one thing Herm Edwards was right about, and let's be honest, he's right about a lot, it's that a quarterback's window is small. You can't waste time waiting for a franchise to figure itself out, especially when you already know how this story ends. So maybe the right move isn't patience. Maybe it's escape. Get out. Find a team that values upside over optics. A team that wants you, not your silence. A team that sees leadership in your fire, not your compliance. That might mean controversy, headlines, social media chaos. So what? You know what else it might mean? A future. Because you can't lead a team from the shadows. And you can't become a legend by waiting your turn in someone else's story. Shedeur Sanders is too good to be a subplot. He deserves to be the main character. And if Cleveland won't let him write his own script, then it's time he takes the pen back and walks away. Think about the timeline. Shedeur Sanders comes into the NFL with the weight of two worlds on his shoulders. He's not just the son of Deion Primetime Sanders, already a Hall of Famer, already a cultural icon. He's also the guy expected to carry Cleveland, a franchise notorious for chewing up quarterbacks and spitting them out. That's not hyperbole. That's history. You can rattle off the names like a horror roll call. Couch, Quinn, Whedon, Kaiser, Manziel, Mayfield. Each one once called the future. Each one hyped, branded, launched into the spotlight, and then left behind. So when Herm Edwards raises his hand and says, "Don't let this happen to Shedeur," you listen. Because Herm's not speaking as a talking head. He's speaking as a man who has seen the league at its most ruthless. A man who's coached rookies, mentored veterans, and sat in locker rooms watching bright futures dim like cheap stadium lights. Now, here's where it gets messy. The Browns don't operate like most teams. They don't just have a quarterback controversy. They've got a contract controversy. Deshaun Watson isn't just QB1. He's QB1 with a $230 million albatross chained to the organization's neck. Fully guaranteed. No escape clause. No easy exit. That contract is a fortress. It's not about whether Watson's the best option. It's about the fact that the Browns can't afford to admit he's not. So here comes Shedeur. Sharp, polished, hungry, putting up highlight reels in camp, winning over teammates, charming reporters. He's got the momentum of a rocket ship and the brakes of a freight train tied to him. Because no matter what he does, no matter how much he shines, the Browns' hands are tied by dollars and optics. And that's exactly why Herm Edwards said, "Leave before they ruin you." Let's put this into perspective. Quarterbacks don't have unlimited time. You get a handful of prime years, if you're lucky. Some burn out fast. Some take a decade to bloom. But most need those early reps, those early moments under the lights, when mistakes don't cost reputations and pressure becomes experience. Every season Shedeur spends sitting, waiting, rotting behind Watson is a season he can't get back. And Herm knows this. He knows how fast the window closes. He knows how many careers die, not because of lack of talent, but because of bad timing and bad environments. Look around the league. You think Patrick Mahomes would have become Patrick Mahomes if he spent his first 4 years buried behind a failing starter in a broken culture? Of course not. He landed in the right place at the right time with the right coach. That's the difference between superstardom and what could have been. And Cleveland? They don't do right place, right time. They do haunted house for quarterbacks. But here's what makes Shedeur different. He's not just talented. He's aware. He knows the cameras are on him. He knows the expectations are high. He knows every step he takes is being compared to his father, to his peers, to history itself. And instead of shrinking, he thrives. That wrist check celebration? It wasn't arrogance. It was branding. It was a signal. I'm not just here to play football. I'm here to take over. You can feel it in how his teammates talk about him. You can see it in the way fans chant his name even when he's not on the field. He has it, and it doesn't wait. It doesn't sit quietly behind an expensive mistake. It doesn't die in Cleveland. So when Herm Edwards says, "Get out," he's not throwing shade at the Browns for fun. He's issuing a lifeline. Because what happens if Shedeur stays? He becomes the backup for years. He loses rhythm. He loses growth. He loses the chance to become who he's supposed to be. And when the Browns finally decide to give him the keys, the car might already be totaled. Fans restless. Media skeptical. Confidence shaky. Another chapter in the same cursed book. That's why Herm's warning is so chilling. He's not predicting a rough season. He's predicting a career obituary. Let's flip it, though. What if Shedeur actually does leave? Imagine the chaos. Imagine the headlines. Imagine the narrative. A rookie quarterback, high profile, beloved by fans, demanding a trade because he refuses to let his career die in Cleveland. We're not talking about a ripple. We're talking about a tidal wave. Teams would line up. The Raiders, the Falcons, the Patriots, even the Cowboys. Don't think Jerry Jones wouldn't sell the ranch for a Sanders dynasty in Dallas. Suddenly, Shedeur's not the kid stuck behind a contract. He's the hottest asset in the league. And the Browns? They'd be left holding a $230 million reminder of every mistake they've ever made. That's not just player movement. That's a power shift. But here's the twist. Shedeur doesn't even have to demand it. All he has to do is stay himself. Keep balling in practice. Keep outshining the veteran. Keep being the obvious future while the Browns cling to the past. Eventually, the pressure will build. Fans will turn. The locker room will fracture. The owner will panic. And the Browns will face the same choice Herm already spelled out. Shedeur or disaster. The question is, how long will Shedeur wait? Because waiting too long is how legends get lost. And Herm's right. Sometimes survival isn't about patience. It's about escape. So here's the real headline. The one nobody in Cleveland wants to read, but everyone feels in their gut. Shedeur Sanders doesn't need the Browns. But the Browns? They desperately need him. And if they don't figure that out fast, then Herm Edwards' 6-word warning will echo louder than any dog-pound bark. Get out, Shedeur. Get out now. Let's imagine it. Shedeur Sanders doesn't wait. He doesn't smile politely and nod at the be patient speeches. He doesn't let Cleveland slowly turn his career into a sad trivia answer. Instead, he makes the move Herm Edwards begged him to consider. He leaves. And in doing so, he sets off the biggest quarterback earthquake the NFL has seen in years. The fallout in Cleveland. Picture the scene. It's a gray Cleveland morning, the kind that always feels like a metaphor for the franchise itself. The beat reporters open their emails and see the headline. Shedeur Sanders requests trade from Browns. Boom. The city melts down in real time. Talk radio loses its collective mind. Social media explodes with hashtags. Hashtag Free Shedeur. Hashtag Fire the Browns. Hashtag Primetime Escape. Fans are burning jerseys, not Shedeur's, of course, but Deshaun Watson's. The Browns' front office scrambles for damage control. They call it frustration. They call it miscommunication. They call it everything but the truth. The truth? Shedeur saw the writing on the wall. He saw the haunted house history of Cleveland quarterbacks. He saw the chains of Watson's contract. He saw the dysfunction swirling like a storm cloud. And instead of waiting to drown, he grabbed the lifeboat. Herm Edwards predicted it. And now it's happening. The teams who would line up. Let's not kid ourselves. If Shedeur Sanders actually hit the market, this wouldn't be a casual bidding war. It'd be an all-out arms race. The Raiders. Las Vegas thrives on flash and swagger. They've been searching for a new face since Derek Carr left. Imagine Shedeur on the Strip, lights blazing, turning Allegiant Stadium into a weekly spectacle. That's not just football, that's box office. The Falcons. Atlanta is already primed for a primetime legacy sequel. Dion built his empire there, and Shedeur could pick up the torch. The city would rally overnight, and suddenly the Falcons go from cute playoff hopeful to must-watch TV. The Cowboys. Oh, Jerry Jones is lurking. He's watching Cleveland crumble and licking his chops. Shedeur in Dallas wouldn't just be a move. It'd be a cultural takeover. The son of a Cowboys legend, walking into Jerry World as the new star? That's the kind of storyline Jerry would mortgage the entire future for. The Patriots. Desperate for a quarterback. Desperate for relevance. Imagine Belichick's stoic system combined with Shedeur's energy. Old school meets new school. Chaos, yes, but also potentially revolutionary. The Dolphins. Tua's health has been questioned nonstop. Miami already leans on speed, swag, and flash. Shedeur would fit like he was born for South Beach. And that's just the first 5. In reality, more than half the league would make calls. Because quarterbacks like Shedeur, they don't hit the market. Not this early. Not this talented. Not this magnetic. The cultural earthquake. But let's zoom out from the X's and O's. If Shedeur were to leave Cleveland, it wouldn't just be a sports story. It would be a cultural event. This is the son of Deion Sanders, a player raised not just to play the game, but to understand the spotlight, to own it, to weaponize it. Shedeur knows his value. He knows he's not just a quarterback, he's a brand, a movement. And if he escapes the Cleveland curse, that proves something huge. Players can choose survival over loyalty. They can choose their careers over the politics of contracts. It would flip the script on rookie quarterbacks forever. No longer would rookies have to rot behind untouchable veterans because of money. No longer would talent be suppressed in the name of saving face. Shedeur leaving would send a message to every young star in the league. You don't have to stay trapped. You can walk away. The Browns' nightmare. Now, let's not ignore the other side. If Shedeur leaves, what's left in Cleveland? Deshaun Watson and his contract. A fractured locker room. A fan base in full revolt. The Browns would instantly become the cautionary tale. Not just the team that can't keep quarterbacks. Not just the franchise that fumbles the bag. No, this would be the moment they become a permanent meme. The team that somehow found a generational talent and ran him off before he even got the chance to start. Imagine explaining that to the next generation of fans. Imagine trying to convince anyone to believe in the process after that. It would be organizational death. The Shedeur effect. But here's the part that makes this story even more electric. Shedeur wouldn't just survive leaving. He'd thrive. Because every ounce of pressure, every headline, every criticism, he's already built for it. He's been primetime son his whole life. He's been the spotlight kid, the target, the expectation magnet. And instead of folding, he sharpened himself into a leader. You think a trade request would break him? No. It would ignite him. Wherever he lands, that fan base would embrace him instantly. They'd see him not as a rookie trying to earn stripes, but as the QB who had the guts to bet on himself. That's the difference. That's why Herm Edwards isn't just giving advice. He's laying out the blueprint for survival. What Cleveland doesn't understand. Here's the irony. The Browns have exactly what they've been searching for, a quarterback who can win games, unite a locker room, sell jerseys, and electrify a city. And instead of embracing him, they're suffocating him under a contract they refuse to admit was a mistake. They're treating Shedeur like a luxury, when in reality, he's a necessity. The Browns don't just need him for football. They need him to erase decades of pain, to rewrite their story, to prove they're not cursed. But until they see that, until they swallow their pride and put talent over politics, Shedeur's best move is the one Herm Edwards said out loud. Get out. The clock is ticking. Because here's the cruel truth of the NFL. Windows close fast. If Shedeur stays 2 years too long, his shine could fade. His reps could dwindle. His confidence could stall. And the Browns? They'd shrug, say we tried, and move on to the next rookie. But Shedeur doesn't have to let that happen. He can leave now. He can change his fate. He can control his own story instead of letting Cleveland write it for him. And in doing so, he could spark a revolution. So here we are. Herm Edwards' 6 words aren't just commentary anymore. They're prophecy. Get out, Shedeur. Get out now. And if he listens, the NFL won't just change quarterbacks. It'll change forever.